Grimble by Clement Freud. Friday. On Friday, Grimble woke very early and went out to give the pigeons the last of the sandwiches from the oven. These were now very stale and tasted evil, but pigeons not only have poor table manners, but they are unfussy about what they eat. He gave the fattest pigeon a 5-day-old apricot jam buddy and stood behind a tree with his jacket ready to catch it. The pigeon waddled along, looking down at the curled-up piece of bread, pecked at it, and at that moment Grimble dove. The pigeon took a quick step to one side, and Grimble landed on his sandwich. He swiped the jam carefully from the inside of his jacket and decided to have breakfast out. Yesterday's chocolate sauce had been very interesting, but he felt like something special before the Friday fish fingers. He thought a bacon sandwich would be nice. The shop on the corner that sold newspapers was so steadily empty that one could always get anything else one wanted done there. Grimble said, "Good morning. Could I have a button sewn on to my jacket and a clean handkerchief and a bacon sandwich while I read your newspaper?" The woman said, "Of course, that's what I'm here for." And Grimble read, "School holidays begin soon" in one paper, and "School holidays have just begun" in another. Newspapers don't lie, his father had told him. They invent the truth. As his school holidays began that afternoon after school, he made a small note on his cuff about which newspaper told the truth and which one didn't, and read about football. His best club had lost the evening before and were bottom of the table. The woman in the paper shop came back with his jacket and the sandwich wrapped in a handkerchief. She was rather a silly woman. He blew his nose, ate the sandwich, gave the woman a shilling, and folded up the newspaper, saw that it now had a lot of very good faking fingerprints on it, and put it at the bottom of the pack, went on going off to school. The last day of term was a specially good day. Nothing that happens on the last day counts because the teachers have done their reports, and if you have to stay in after school, you can't because school is finished. There were no real lessons, just teachers chatting and doing puzzles and telling the boys to clean out their desk and hand in their school books. Next term, they were all going into another class except for Dashwood, Piercy, and Trug, who were staying in the class for another term because Trug couldn't count. Dashwood did not know the difference between reading and writing, and Piercy had had measles and had only been to school on the first day of term, and then again on the last day. Grimble felt very, very well all that morning, thinking about his parents flying back from Peru. When he got his milk at 11, he thought they would just about be passing Birmingham now. At lunch, he thought they must be past New York. When the bell went for the end of school, he decided that with the world going round one way and his parents coming another, they might have got back yesterday, only had been held up at the airport waiting for their luggage. After school, he ran straight home and shouted, "I am here!" No one answered. He went to his parents' bedroom because when they went away, they sometimes went straight to bed. But the bed was empty, and the note from the first day was still there. "Tea in the fridge, sandwiches in the oven, have a good time." Have a good time was a typical grown-up remark that did not mean anything. He went to the fridge and took out the bottles of tea and poured them into the sink. His mother said tea was very good for children as it made the insides of their tummies golden red color. Grimble did not mind what color the inside of his tummy was. He did not like tea, and he drank quite a lot of coffee and ate white chocolate, and he thought about his and ate white chocolate. He thought his tummy was probably about the right color anyway. What would be especially nice, he thought, would be to get some sort of coming home present for his parents. He went to the cake tin, and it was still about 1/3 full of sixpences, so he took a handful and went to the shop on the corner. "Good evening," he said to the dotty lady. "Could you give me a present for 2 people returning from Peru?" The woman gave him a street map of Manchester and 2 pencils and said, "Would you like me to wrap them up?" Grimble said, "Naturally. Who ever heard of a present that was unwrapped up?" So she wrapped the map and pencils and found a card that said, "You are 5 today." It was not terribly suitable, but was the only one in the shop, so he bought it and wrote "Welcome home" on it and ran back to the house. "I am home," he shouted. There was no reply. He crept up the stairs and looked in the bedroom. Nothing, just the "have a good time" note. So he went downstairs and looked at the list of names. The last name was Madame Barrel's cake shop. Madame Barrel was a friend of his mother, who sometimes called and talked to her about self-raising flour and currant loaves. She was She smelled of vanilla essence. Grimble had once gone into the bathroom and found Madame Barrel standing on the scales, and the pointer on the scales pointing to Jones and Company, which is just after 16 stones, all the way round from 1 stone. Madame Barrel's shop was past the station. There was a row of shops selling fish and children's clothes and electric light bulbs, and then the cake shop. On the shop window he saw a note which said "Back soon," and under it she had written, "Grimble, key to the door is in the fish shop." So he went into the fish shop and said, "Please, could I have Madame Barrel's key?" And the fish man said, "Do you want chips with it?" "Yes, please," said Grimble, "and a little wine vinegar on the chips. I don't care for malt vinegar very much, but I do like salt." He got a very large bag of hot chips and the key to the cake shop and let himself into Madame Barrel's and ate chips. They were particularly well-cooked chips, and when he had finished he wiped his fingers on the handkerchief and threw the chip paper into a waste-paper basket in a corner of the shop. He missed the basket the first 5 times, and then went round exploring. The kitchen was at the back of the shop, and when Grimble came into it he realized straight away why the cake shop woman wasn't there. It was absolutely full of cakes and buns and rolls and fruit loaves and meringues and macaroons and fairy cakes and mince pies and fruit tarts. On the shelves were packets of jelly and tins of fruit and bags of different kinds of sugar and jars of jams and treacles and syrups and a mousetrap. There was also a note that said, "Grimble, please help yourself. Fridays are good nights for trifles. Look in this book for instructions." He looked in the book under tea. There were 7 pages about tapioca and then a chapter on trifles. "This is a good thing to eat," said the book. "My trifle is a mixture of fruit and cream and cake and jam and jelly and sugar and almonds, and if you like custard, custard. It is eaten cold." Grimble leant the cookery book against the flower vase on the table and decided that a large bag of chips does not make people very hungry for trifle. But Madame Barrel had obviously gone to such a lot of trouble to get him all the things that go into a trifle that he felt he really should make it. After all, it did not seem to be very difficult. He got some pieces of cake and poured on the juice from the peaches, and then put on some strawberries and a spoonful of jelly, and then a layer of custard, and then the cream, and then put some almonds into it. And then he thought, I could have put in the meringues and made it my own trifle a la Grimble. And then I could write a cookery book and become rich and famous, and when I walked down the street, people would point at me and say, "There goes the inventor of trifle a la Grimble." And others would say, "Not the Grimble." And the first lot of people would say, "Yes, the Grimble of trifle fame." So he got a fish slice. If it did not have any fish on it, it is just called a fish slice. And he lifted up some of the trifle and put the meringue in the middle and pressed it all into shape again and put almonds into the holes his fingers had made, and it looked exceedingly handsome. As there were a lot of cake boxes about and the chips and vinegar were still doing their job in stopping him from being very hungry, he decided to take the trifle home. He might give it to his parents as a welcome home present. When he arrived at home, at his house, he opened the door and shouted, "I am back." There was no answer, but there were about 5 suitcases in the hall, which had not been there when he had gone out. "I am back. Hello, Grimble calling parents, over." No one answered. He went up to the bedroom, and there was no sign of them, though the note had gone. He came down again and looked in the front garden and the back garden. No sign, and then he went into the kitchen. And there they were, the 3 of them, his father and his mother and his trifle, sitting very quietly at the kitchen table. And his trifle had been unwrapped, and stuck into the top of the cream were 10 whole candles and 1 or 2 bits of candle, all alight. "Peru's a bad place for cakes," said his father. "Never go there if you want cake. Really not." Grimble looked at his father and mother and thought, "They are back and school is over, and tomorrow I shall get 10 pence for breakfast, and we'll read the newspaper together. And if they get up in time for lunch, I might actually cook them something."